Well, hello, people of grace, and specifically families of grace. I hope you all are doing really well. And the purpose for this video is I wanted to just take a few minutes and go over some of the documents that are included instead of that email that I sent out to each of you that is essentially just going to give that broad overview for what Student Ministries of Grace is going to really look like going forward. And if it wasn't for COVID and if it wasn't for the strange summer and season that we're going through, my original plan was to have really just kind of an open informational meeting where we could go over these documents in more detail. And I could field any type of questions that you all had in the moment and hopefully have a much better dialogue with that. But again, due to the season that we're in, a lot of the restrictions that we have and the guidelines that we're trying to follow here at the church, I think, or I thought it would be best if I just took a few minutes, recorded a video for you all, went over just some of the broad general overview of what we're hoping to do at Student Ministries of Grace going forward in order to serve you and your families and your children. And then if you all have any questions after this just little brief video, please feel free to reach out to me. You can give me a call, send me an email, and I'd be happy to talk with you more about any type of questions or concerns that you might have. And so just as a way of just kind of opening the discussion up a little bit, I've talked with several of you families already over the course of the summer. But for those of you who I haven't talked to, my main purpose and goal in coming to GCPC and striving to lead this youth and family ministry is that I would love nothing more than to see for each and every one of our kids from the second that they enter in to sixth grade and enter into Student Ministries of Grace all the way through their time in high school, that for them, as they go through and as they leave high school and head on to college or whatever else it is that they're going to be doing with their lives and entering into adulthood, that we will be in our ministry successfully and faithfully coming alongside you all as parents to serve you in the work that you're already doing, because we believe here at Grace Community Presbyterian Church that the main discipleship that's going to be going on is going to be the discipleship that you all as the parents are doing with your children. And we really want nothing more than to come alongside you and support you in that work. We have no desire whatsoever to come in and supplant what you're doing, to override what you're doing. And so hopefully everything that we're going to be teaching here, everything that our small group leaders will be leading the kids through, all the books that we go through, hopefully everything that is being conveyed to them is going to be backing up and supporting all of the things that you are teaching to your children and trying to instill in them as you seek to raise your children in the fear and admonition of the Lord. And so in my coming here, I think it was towards the end of March, early April, I've been getting to work right away, and I've been working with our small group leaders tirelessly to try to come up with a curriculum and I don't really like the word program, but in some senses a program by which we can successfully and faithfully meet that goal of serving you all as parents, of coming alongside and serving your families, and hopefully leaving open ground for your families to organically go about connecting with other families and being a part of just one of the aspects of the ministry of this church. So that's just a broad overview of that. And so what I wanted to do now was just go through these two documents that I sent you, the SMoG Yearly Overview, as well as the SMoG Yearly Calendar. And so let me go ahead and just share my screen here really quick with you all. And if it'd be helpful to you, please feel free to go through this document as I go through it as well. And so what we're going to be planning to do with Student Ministries of Grace, as it says here with the yearly overview, is that we are going to split up at least our small group time which was previously known as Roots. We're just going to be changing the name of that to Foundations. But as far as our meeting time and things like that, it's still going to be on Wednesdays to this point, and we're still going to be meeting at 7 o'clock in the evening. And I should qualify that with when we are able to safely meet as a group back here at the church building. Until that point, we'll continue to meet over Zoom. And so once I'm able to hear a little bit more from the session and we're able to have a little bit more clarity on when exactly we might be able to meet here at the church, I'll be sure to update you all on that as well. But this is for a non-COVID season that we'll be going through. And so we're going to be planning to go by a monthly schedule here where Foundations will be on the first and the third weeks of the month, and those will be on Wednesday. So the first and the third Wednesdays of each month will be when we have Foundations, and I'll talk about that for a little bit here in just a few minutes. And then another thing that I'll be talking about in just a few minutes as well is something that we'll be adding and that I'm very excited about, and I'm hoping will be just another way that we can serve you and your families well, which will be these discipleship groups, which will meet on the second and the fourth weeks of the month. And so the idea behind this schedule to this point is that I wanted it to be that for you and your families, that depending on what your schedules were, and I know that there's sports, and I know that there's music, and I know that there's all these other different types of activities that you and your family are doing. And so I wanted it to be that we had something that was available for your youth to be a part of every week of each month. And so you all would be able to then go and have all these things in front of you and be able to decide for yourselves what is essentially going to work best for you and your family. And so there is going to be a difference between these foundation groups and these discipleship groups. And again, I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But for Foundations, our schedule, our yearly schedule is going to be split up into essentially 5 different semesters. And so as you can see here, that first semester, it's going to be 5 meetings that we'll have. And so we'll be meeting that first and third week of the month, so every other week. And this will be for September through mid-November. And then we'll go into the second semester, which will be for 3 meetings. But what will be different is that we will go through a Bible series, which means that essentially I'll just be leading the group through a particular chapter or passage of scripture, which at that point, after I'm done just teaching on that for a little bit, that the small groups with their small group leaders will split up and divide and go off and discuss those things a little bit more. But each one of these group times that we have, this will be very similar to what Roots was. So it's hopefully not going to be too much out of your comfort zone for what Roots has already been to this point, that they will still split up into their small groups. And so really the only difference and change at this point, let me just go down here and show you this for just a quick second. Our groups of emphasis here is that instead of splitting up our youth into each individual grade level, what we're going to do from now on is we're going to have just middle school and just high school meeting. And for high school, it'll be both guys and gals will be meeting when they split off into their small groups. For middle school, for the time that I will be teaching and leading them through a portion of scripture that will apply to the reading that they'll be going through, that will be all guys and girls meeting together. But when they split up into their small groups, the middle schoolers will split up into guys middle school small groups. So that'll be 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So guys and girls will split up then into their different small groups where they can have good discussion with their small group leaders that they've already become so accustomed to meeting with and forming relationships with. So again, getting back here to this schedule up here. So the second semester will be 3 meetings long from mid-November to December, and we'll be going through a Bible series. The reason that we'll be not going through a particular book together on Christian living or something like that, and essentially will be that I wanted it to be that in the time during the summer, as well as time around Christmas and the holidays, that I know that many of you will probably be vacationing around that time. So I wanted it to just be some shorter, more specifically directed studies that if you all were going away on vacation, you didn't feel like you needed to have a certain amount of reading or something like that done before coming and participating in the particular group for that week. So that's why these are going to be a little bit different for the second semester when we'll be going through a Bible series. And then also this fifth semester down here where we'll have 4 different meetings and we'll be going through a video series. And so again, I'll talk about some of those things here in just a few minutes. But this is going to be the general flow of the calendar. And you'll notice here that essentially we'll be meeting on a consistent basis throughout the year, except for this off month that we're going to have in June. And that's really just because we have RYM camps. Typically, that's when either Kyle or myself will be going to General Assembly. So there's a lot of other things that are already going on in June. And so for foundations purposes, for discipleship group purposes, we will not have a meeting. We will not have any meetings during the month of June. But every other month of the year, we will continue to have that same practice. And then here's just some of the goals of what we'll be going through. I'll let you all read over that a little bit. And like I said a little bit earlier, we hope to have different emphases for the different age groups and what we'll be hoping to instill in them. Hopefully that by the end, when they are, again, exiting out of high school and entering into that next stage of adulthood and going off to college and whatnot, we are hoping that these are some of the things that we'll be able to, again, come alongside you all and help to instill in your children that really at the end of the day, that they would come to know the church, that they would come to see the church as their family, and that they would really love the church and that they would be sound in the faith and really ultimately able to be disciple makers themselves. Even as young high schoolers heading off into college. And so just some of the emphasis of the middle school curriculum, and I'll have all the books listed here that they'll be going through that I'll talk about here in just a second. But this entire curriculum for foundations will be on developing a biblical understanding of the importance of the church and the gospel to their spiritual growth. And also included in that will be a focus on some of the challenges of the middle school years and training them to grow in wisdom. And so really just wanting to take some time with our middle schoolers and just helping them as they are, as their brains are developing and as they're growing and just trying to think through all of these things of, entering into high school coming up soon for them. We really just want to come alongside them and really help to show them how important the church is, show them how important those authority figures in their life, like their parents, like their pastors, like their teachers are for them. Hopefully doing all of this in the hopes of training them really to grow in wisdom, that they can be very well prepared as they enter into high school to deal with maybe some more complex subject matters. And the emphasis of that high school curriculum will be focused on developing a more fully formed worldview. Definitely some things that they'll be interacting with when it comes to just inside of their school, with their classmates and whatnot. We also want to develop in them a very healthy prayer life, a love for God's word and what it means to obey Christ's commands. And then lastly, growth and maturity and wisdom, that they may be able to be disciple makers themselves. And so we really, as much as possible, would like it to be that our high schoolers are leaving high school and heading off into college really, again, taking the things that they've learned in middle school and really starting to apply them more and more, and really starting to think on these things of what does it look like to have a healthy prayer life? Why is it important to have love for God's word and whatnot, and really start to think through these things so that they might be able to give an answer for the hope that is within them. And then this is what I mentioned just a couple minutes ago about books and things that they'll be going through. And so hopefully this will be helpful for you all as parents, that for each year during the different semesters, these will be each of the books that they will be going through. And so you'll know well ahead of time what books they'll be going through, what chapters we'll be planning to cover together, and so that you all as parents can go and maybe hopefully even think through and read some of these things with your middle school or high schooler as well, and discuss it with them, so that that'll also hopefully make our small group time together even that much more beneficial. And so you'll see here, these will be the different books that we'll be going through. So for this coming semester, that'll be starting on Wednesday, September 2nd, or at least that week, if we're not able to meet at the church yet at that point. The middle schoolers will be going through Kevin DeYoung and Ted Kluck's book, Why We Love the Church. We'll be going through chapters 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8 over the course of that 5-week period that we'll be meeting. And then when that book is over, then we'll move to Habits of Grace by David Mathis, then Confessing Christ by Calvin Knox Cummings, and so on and so forth. The Bible series that they'll be going through in that second semester will be Ephesians 1 through 3. And then the video series that the middle schoolers will be going through is Communion of the Saints by R.C. Sproul. And so again, all of those things will just be that we'll go through those materials, discuss them a little bit, and then they'll break off into their small groups for a little bit and continue to discuss these matters a little bit more. And so you can see that for by the time they enter into 6th grade through 8th grade, they will go through year 1, year 2 on addressing challenges for Christian middle schoolers. And the only thing that I don't have down just yet, but I will in time, is that Bible series there in year 2, and still just thinking over a few texts that might be helpful for them that year. And then that final year for middle schoolers, Growing in Wisdom, you'll have Taking God at His Word, and then we'll split it up that second semester into a book that the boys will be going through and a book that the girls will be going through. And so that'll finish that up for middle schoolers. High schoolers, exactly the same thing. The only difference with where we'll be starting for high schoolers is we're actually going to start in year 2 for them. The high schoolers have already gone through this book, Know What You Believe by K. Scott Oliphant. And so I'd really like the high schoolers to start here with A Praying Life by Paul Miller, which was one of the most helpful books for me in my beginning of my Christian walk, of thinking about what it looks like to have a life of prayer. And so the high schoolers will start off with there, but it's going to be the same format for them. The 3 different books that they'll go over the course of that year, the chapters that they'll be reading through, the different Bible series that they'll be going through, and as well as the video series that they'll be going through there over the course of the summer after that June break. And so you all just look through all of that I have there for you. And of course, just let me know if you have any questions about any of the reading, any of the schedule for any of these things, and I'd be happy to help you and answer any of those questions for you. On page 5 of the document, you'll then find Student Ministries of Grace discipleship groups. And so whereas Foundations, aside from the name change and just a couple other elements that might change slightly, it's going to be Foundations is going to be very similar to what Roots was. But an element that I wanted to add into our schedule, again, these are all just things that we'd like to make available to you all as families. So for everything that I'm going through inside of this video, please don't take anything that I'm saying here as as it's something that is mandatory that you must be a part of. Really don't want to put any pressure on you or your family to really do any of these things. We'd love you to be a part of all of these things, but the reason why we're splitting some of these things up the way that we are is hopefully so that it'll give you all as families more options and more things that you can think through and really hopefully build Student Ministries of Grace into your already existing schedule. And so if, just going to foundations the first and the third weeks of the month just works for your family, that'll be great. And if you can only be a part of maybe a discipleship group or maybe a mix of both, again, all of those things are completely fine. And the goal is that depending on when you and your family have availability, that we would have something that's also available for your family and specifically for your youth that they can be involved in. And so the main idea behind these discipleship groups is essentially, and again, that we'll be meeting on the second and fourth weeks of each month. The goal of these discipleship groups is really to take the things that the kids have been learning from you all as their parents, that they've been learning in school, that they've been learning as they come to their foundations groups and things like that, and really start to think on them more, and really just to think on just the life that they're going through as middle schoolers or high schoolers, and just to have another set of people, again, not to supplant, not to subvert talking with their parents or anything like that, but really to have an additional set of people that's really what we see as a role of the church is, and even in some of the vows that we take as members of the church, is to come alongside men and women and to come alongside you all as parents and to help you as you shepherd and disciple your children. And so that's what is going to be the hope for these discipleship groups, is that we can have men and women, both younger and a little bit older, from all walks of life, and perspectives that are godly, that are mature, and that we really can hold out to you as parents and say that these are worthy examples of people that we believe would that your children would be well served to be sitting under and talking through and talking with them. And so these groups will be open for you all to sign up, in addition to your foundations groups as well. And I'll have all those signups available for you with Sign Up Genius, that you can go and sign up for these groups as well. But the main purpose of these groups really is going to be to facilitate relationships between the students themselves, but also that the students would have with their discipleship group leader, as well as some of our small group leaders for SMoG that are very much willing and eager and want to be a part of these discipleship groups as well, just to come and continue to invest into the kids. And so hopefully this is going to be a time where, with the discipleship group leaders, that they can take some of those things that they've already been learning and already been thinking through and help them to really do what Christ commands instead of the Great Commission, and really teaching them how it is that they obey all it is that Christ has commanded of them. Really thinking through, how is it that I can live and serve faithfully as a middle schooler or as a high schooler? How can I faithfully honor my parents? How can I grow in discipline? All these things that, again, you all as parents are already teaching them and already instilling them. We're hoping that we can be voices that are coming and echoing all those same sentiments and speaking into their lives, maybe just from another person's perspective, and just hopefully all of these people coming alongside your kids and speaking that same message of growth, maturity, wisdom, growing in godliness and holiness and righteousness and all those things. And we're hoping that those will be some of the things that those discipleship groups will accomplish. A note with these discipleship groups, and really what's going to also differentiate them from our foundations groups, aside from the fact that it's going to be really much more application and relational focused, is the fact that these groups are not really not necessarily going to be tethered to the church building. And so once you sign up for these discipleship groups, if you choose to sign up for them, your specific discipleship group leader, and by the way, I'll just mention it now that for the guys' discipleship groups, I will be leading the middle school discipleship group for the boys. One of our ruling elders, Brian Nelson, has agreed to head up and lead the high school guys' discipleship group. And then for the ladies' discipleship group, we have Samantha Rohde, Tracy Carter, and Ann Nelson, who have all agreed to take on these groups and invest into these groups. And so those will be some of the men and women that will be leading those groups, just so you all are aware. And so at that time that you would sign up for these groups, again, if you choose to, your discipleship group leader would reach out to the entirety of the group, and you all would really hopefully have a lot of freedom, depending on your schedules and whatnot, as to when you meet, how long you meet, where you're going to meet, whether that's your meeting at the discipleship group leader's home, going out meeting for coffee or something like that, and really just hopefully having a much more relaxed, maybe even a little bit more intimate setting that those groups can meet and talk with each other, and again, continue to grow in maturity and wisdom, and hopefully growing to the point that someday soon, hopefully, that these young men and women would grow to be disciple makers and disciple leaders themselves. And so the curriculum that they could be going through will really be dependent on the discipleship group leader as well. They'll be talking with us as pastors and as the session, just looking over some of those things. But again, these discipleship groups are not as curriculum heavy or curriculum focused, specifically because Foundations is going to be more curriculum focused, really just talking about what it is that they're reading. And hopefully these discipleship groups will be more relational and more focused on putting into practice all of these different things that they're learning. So hopefully that's helpful. Again, if you have any questions whatsoever, I know that there's a lot more that I could say on these things. Please feel free to reach out to me about that. And then when it comes to our fellowship events, one of the main things that we're going to be hoping to do as a youth group to facilitate the kids hopefully seeing the church as their home, as their family, as a place where most of their best memories of going through middle school and high school hopefully will be within the context of the church. I really can think of no better way to do that than for our youth and for their families just to get into the homes of our various families and people, and just enjoy a meal together, play some games together, maybe swim together, all those different types of things. And so each month we are going to have available a home fellowship event for a specific age group. And so you'll see here, this is just a little bit of the schedule for that, a more detailed schedule for these fellowship events, and all of our fellowship events will be found on the other document that we're going to take a look at here in just a couple minutes. But you'll see here that for a particular month, you'll have that it'll be at a particular family's home, and it'll be either for just middle schoolers or for just high schoolers that'll be at that event. And really the main reason we're doing that is so that we don't have too many people at someone's home, and even just with just middle schoolers or just high schoolers, that can still get to be quite a few people. And so we'd really like to make it where these are as contained of groups as possible. We'd also like to open it up for these home events as well, that we'd like to invite, always invite you all as parents to come and hopefully enjoy some time of fellowship with other parents that would show up as well. But of course, that's not an obligation of yours. If you choose to just drop off your middle schooler or high schooler and maybe go out for a date night or something like that, or go get some errands done, that's perfectly fine as well. And again, for all these things, we really want to just leave it open for you all, and how it's going to really just be most helpful to you. And so you'll see here just again that just throughout the course of the year, except for June, when we will not have any youth events outside of the camps that we're a part of, and possible maybe missions projects or service projects or things like that, have some of those things available. And for some of the months, they'll have non-home fellowship events, and particularly if you'll notice here, in August, that we'll hope to have a church summer cookout. That was something that I was hoping for us to have available and that we could do this year, but just because of COVID and all those things, we weren't able to do it this year. But my hope for this summer cookout every year would be that for our 5th graders that are entering into 6th grade and entering into Student Ministries of Grace, that this could be a time really of a welcoming for them. This could hopefully be the first big event that they're a part of, and that we can really give them a proper welcome and introduction into Student Ministries of Grace. And so just take note of some of that. We'll also plan to have a Christmas party every December. And so for those things, it'll be middle school and high school that'll be a part of some of those events. And then for Student Ministries of Grace service projects, this is really going to be dependent upon my talking with our deacons primarily, and just seeing which ways that the deacons may use or could be benefited by our youth coming along and serving our people, whether that's doing some yard work or something else. And I'd like us also in time, although this isn't necessarily the best time with COVID-19, to be reaching out to other ministries and things like that, but to reach out to even things like our local crisis pregnancy centers and things like that, and seeing ways that we as a youth group can be more involved with things just inside of our broader community here in Fort Worth. And so some of these things will become more clear in time, and won't necessarily be able to be something that I'll be able to get to you a year in advance like we would with our foundations and discipleship groups and fellowship events. And then also in time, I'll be going over with Missions of Grace, and just looking to try to determine mission trips and projects that our youth group can hopefully be a part of in time. So that's a general overview for that. And then the other document that I gave you is the actual yearly calendar for all of these events that I've talked about just a little bit. And so for the educational schedule, hopefully this is pretty easy for you all to read, and hopefully there's not too many questions with it. But just for that first semester that we have coming up, that'll start in September, here's the different books that they'll go through. So middle school will go through Why We Love the Church. High school will be going through A Praying Life. First and third Wednesdays of each of those 5 weeks that they meet from 7 to roughly about 8:30. And these will be the 5 different dates, Lord willing, that we will meet and discuss as a foundations group for those meetings. And then for the high school and middle school discipleship groups, again, this is just going to be the week of, so these aren't the exact dates that they'll meet. Again, your discipleship group leader will reach out to your groups, and you all will decide when during the week of September 7th or the week of December 7th or whatever that your particular groups will meet, again, what time, for how long, and everything. You all will get to discuss that as a group. And I have that there for you for 2020, as well as through August of 2021. And this is going to be something that hopefully this document around hopefully early July of every year, that I'll have this new yearly calendar out for you, so that you'll be able to see the dates of when foundations will be meeting, when discipleship groups will be meeting roughly, and all of that. And so you can continue to have all of these dates in front of you, again, about a year in advance, so that you all can then go and take a look at your calendars and, again, see just what works best for your family and what are ways that we can best serve you. And so I'll have that here again for each of those 5 semesters, the different video series and Bible series that they're going through. And then here's the fellowship schedule. And so one thing that I neglected to mention when I was talking about fellowship events beforehand is that for a particular month, that, say that, here we have the high schoolers for September 26th at the Denison home, that it'll just be high schoolers that'll be meeting on that for September 26th, that month of September. That we don't want to just leave our middle schoolers out to dry with nothing to do. And so if your age group does not have a home fellowship event, instead what we'll have is a non-home fellowship event. And all of these things will typically be that 4th weekend of that particular month. And so here we'll have that the middle schoolers in September, so on September 25th, Lord willing, is what we're planning, that the middle schoolers will get to play whirly ball together. And so we have those things listed out as well. And again, some of these will be events that both middle schoolers and high schoolers will be a part of, such as the Christmas party, as well as something that I'm pretty excited about doing here in time. On March 27th of 2021, high school and middle school doing a trip through Texas. It's not really, I know how large Texas is, so don't think just because I'm from Florida that I'm that naive. But what this trip really will be is hopefully just an all-day trip from sunrise to sunset, that we'll watch the sunrise together, we'll enjoy some breakfast together, and just throughout the course of the day make our way through to just a few different destinations throughout really North Texas. But hopefully it'll be just a time where we can spend good time in fellowship, considering God's word through devotion, through a few devotionals a little bit. And so that's a particular trip that we'll have more details coming out about it in time. But again, that just serves to highlight that some months there will not be a home fellowship event, and there'll be some events that will be for both middle schoolers and high schoolers to attend. But again, here's the schedule for each of those things, for each of those months, and the dates that they'll be meeting, as well as what person's home, whether it's the Gears home or the Carter's home. Again, hopefully just putting all these things in front of you that you all can plan accordingly for those things. And so that about does it for just, again, a broad overview of what we're looking to do and what we're planning to do. And again, I'll be including both of those documents in the email that'll be sent out. I'll also include with it all of the Sign Up Genius signups for foundations coming up, so that we can get books ordered for you and your kids to go through, as well as those discipleship groups as well. And then in time, I'll also be getting out signups for all of those various fellowship events, so that we can continue to plan and do those things well. So again, I hope all of that was helpful. I know I can be a little long-winded at times, so thank you for bearing with me through that. And again, I know that there's still a lot more things that can and should be said about some of these groups and some of the books that they're going through and all those types of things. But I think that that serves us all well at this point, just for a brief overview. And if you all have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me. And my desire at the end of the day is to be able to serve you all faithfully and well, and to come alongside you all as parents and seek to just pour into your children and love them and care for them and seek to disciple them again in that fashion of coming alongside you all. So again, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions at all, but I'm greatly looking forward to our upcoming semester in September. Next week is going to be the last week that the kids will be going through their current books that they're going through. And so after that, we'll be switching then to the new books that they'll be going through. So please sign up for the new foundations group so that I can get those books ordered for your kids that they can be a part of. And again, I'm greatly looking forward to it, and hopefully here in time, we'll be able to hopefully maybe safely meet here at the church again, meeting on Wednesdays and not meeting so just disjointedly. So these are all things that I'm praying about and thinking through, and I know that all of our small group leaders are very excited about it, and very much looking forward to just getting back to getting into some of these books, praying with and for your kids, and seeking to be additional godly examples to them, that they would imitate you all as their parents, that they would imitate these discipleship group leaders and all these different people in their lives, that they would imitate them as they imitate Christ. And that's our goal and what we're seeking to do, hopefully in serving you all and glorifying God in the work that we do. So anyway, that's it. And again, reach out if you all have any questions at all, but I really appreciate it and hope you all have a great rest of your week. Take care.